Public Works Committee to order. First thing, we need a motion to approve the minutes of the prior committee meeting. First, I'd like to actually say that the chairman of the board is making the quorum here on our committee. Now I'll take a motion. Is that you, Supervisor Molino? Do we have a second? Supervisor Wild? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, with that, we'll turn it right over to Superintendent Hajos.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 2, the first item we have is on page 2. It's a request to transfer funds for road projects. These projects that are listed on the transfer sheet on page 2 are the projects that we had with the contractor this year. We kept a pretty good watch on the contractor, and this is the money that we had left over on each one of those projects. But we also had more work to do on one of our roads, just not enough funding to do it this year. So we're going to take the money that's left over on these other 4 projects and move it to County Route 3, which is Warrensburg Road, so we can extend that project and get the majority of the other work that was needed to be done this year.
Not in the town of Warrensburg. Now it's going great budget house.
2, 3, and 4 are all related, right?
No, actually they're different. They're
okay.
different transfers.
We could have agreed to. We could still group.
I can go through the rest of them if you'd like.
You want to just highlight?
Sure, I can do that. On page 3 is a request to transfer funds for the Motor Fuel Farm. As you all recall, last year we had a lot of work to do with the replacement of the tanks and such up in Warrensburg, and it did cost us a little extra money to get some of that work done. So in order to keep up on the maintenance on the rest of the fuel farms, I need to transfer some money into that code. And the last transfer is on all of our road construction projects. Typically, we have a code for maintenance of roads equipment rental. One code that has a pot of money in it, and typically at the end of the year, when the projects are done, we start moving the equipment rentals into each one of those road projects. So those are the 3 requests to transfer.
Okay, would someone like to move them? Supervisor Merlino, seconded by Supervisor Wild. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried.
The next item on the agenda is on page 6, and this is a request to appropriate funds. I'm sorry, it's on page 5. Request to appropriate funds for the Motor Fuel Farm. Our contractor that we use, our vendor for the Motor Fuel Farms, has pointed out to us that our fire suppression system on the tanks is outdated. We need to update a couple of the fuel farms, and this is a request to appropriate money to be able to update those fuel farms.
Someone like to move that? Supervisor McGowan. Do you have a second? Supervisor Conover. Any discussion? Gene? Supervisor Wild?
Thank you. Kevin, outdated means it's not functional, can't maintain it?
They're functional, but they no longer have the fire suppression tanks for these systems. That everybody's running out of these tanks. In fact, Northeast Petroleum had a stockpile. DEC had required us, not necessarily required us, but asked us to change them years ago. But Northeast Petroleum our vendor had quite a few of these tanks left over that we've been still using, but they're out of those tanks now.
Mr. Molino?
We have the finance.
Yes, we do. It is coming from the, I believe, the Motor Fuel System Reserve Fund, and it's going to be transferred into or put into the repair and maintenance of equipment for the fire suppression, for the fuel.
Okay, if we're ready, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next item is on page 6 of the agenda, which is a request to amend the budget. This is the insurance recovery check for the replacement of the truck that was involved in an accident back in August.
Would someone like to Would someone like to move that? Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Wild. Discussion?
The cost new of that truck was how much?
I think it's going to be about $34,000 to replace it.
We actually
That's correct.
get totally covered.
Okay, if we're ready for the question, I'll call it. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Next item is on page 9 of the agenda. This is one of our capital projects. This is the Bay Road Preservation Project. This is one of our federally funded projects, and we're decreasing the project and putting the money back to the fund source. That would be the local match, but it came in under budget for that construction project or that preservation project.
Moved by Supervisor McGowan, seconded by Supervisor Merlino. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, carried.
And the last item I have on this agenda is a request to fill a position. This is the position of the Highway Construction Supervisor. This individual was demoted last month, so I had the opportunity to put one of my, possibly a grade 12 into that position.
Would someone like to move that? Supervisor Conover, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any discussion?
Did you have to post this for the union rules, or how did this work?
I will post it. I haven't yet.
Okay, if we're ready for the question, I'll call it. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Carried.
There was no referrals for this month, and for under information for discussion review, I had spoke with DOT last week and the Federal Highway regarding the Bridge New York announcements, and this is for the towns as well as the county. Sometime probably just before election, they'll have the announcements come out for the Bridge New York and whether or not towns or counties receive culverts or bridge money.
Good time right before the elections.
Yes.
Okay, does anybody have any questions under the Public Works Committee? If not, we'll move right into Parks, Rec, and Railroad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First thing I have up is a actual resolution to increase fees for our outreach program. We currently charge $100. I want to increase to $125. It would increase roughly between $1,000 to $1,200 more annually. We haven't done this since 2001.
Good.
That's a great motion.
Someone like to move it?
I'll-
Supervisor Wild, do we have a second? Supervisor McGowan.
Ask a question. What is an outreach program? What do you do? Is that what we're charging people, or?
We actually charge a school or, say, a daycare center, instead of us coming, or they coming to us because of restrictions of school bus and funding, we've now actually taken our program and brought it to them. We've seen a big decline.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but it comes out of the same pocket, right? Taxpayers
Yeah.
will pay it.
Yeah.
It's a school.
Sure. Yep.
Supervisor Wild?
Close to covering our costs.
We use it to generate revenue because they actually have a shortfall. They live off the trust and off tax money. So we're starting to get, so we're so tight that the only way we can do it is increase fees like I did in April for like the parking. Now the next step is, okay, we're going to you, charge an extra $25, which is, we feel is reasonable.
You had any,
Since we're going to them now,
Yeah. You had any feedback from them in terms of whether or not that's going to...
Yeah, we reached out. It's, like I say, they seem it's reasonable. We haven't changed it in a long time. We do between 35 and 50 outreach programs a year, and it's growing.
Okay, if we're ready, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
The next item on the agenda is under referral or pending items. We've been asked to research a smart growth grant with New York State DEC. We just got word from DEC that sometime late in October they'll come out with that smart growth grant. And we were going to use that to look at possibilities of what we would be doing with the railroad, future planning with the railroad.
Okay, the next item I have is we're up for renewal on our stocking permit. I've worked closely with the state, and so has Jeff Ingley, our fish hatchery manager, to do some significant changes in a sense where we do some of the same amounts but different types of years. I have included it in our package to tell you exactly where and what we're doing. If anybody's got any question, obviously I can answer anything that you need. The only thing that we actually kind of really decreased was Patterson Brook, and that was due to public access. That's the whole purpose of the stocking permit. What we put into the local waters, the fishermen need to get to. Well, as things have progressed over the years, Patterson Brook has become less and less, and some of the stocking points we can no longer get to. So they took that number and actually took and moved some fish back to Hovey Pond, for instance, in Queensbury, because they went from 300 to 500. Glen Lake, we used to do just only surplus fish. Now we're actually going to do 350 in the fall, which is for the ice fishermen, because it is an ice water. Westbrook used to be 300. Now we're going to go to 500, and then we're going to try some what we call 2-year-olds, where we hold them over and actually bring them out late fall. It gives them more growth instead of the same thing. Because the stocking, the state is doing 6 to 7 inch. We're doing 8 to 9. Now we want to try to do in the fall 9 to hopefully 13. So we'll have better numbers, better growth. We went to several seminars, listened to what the fishermen wanted. It wasn't about quantity, it was about quality. So we've reached out to the state. They were there also. They understood, and it's something we want to try for the next 5 years. Yes.
President Renewal.
I talked to you last year about Lake Benar, something you have access.
Oh yeah.
They get back to you now that kind of Lake Luzerne
Correct.
has access to the lake.
Correct.
So if there's any fish left over, I'd love to have some.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
They would have to be the extras that don't go into the mill pond for the fishing
Yeah,
derby.
The smaller one.
We'll take the smaller one. Huh? No, I get the same thing. The fishermen say, get it stocked, get it stocked.
Yeah.
But we didn't have access, and I understand that. Now we have access.
Correct.
Now,
They're actually going to perform a survey for you.
thank you.
Okay.
Any questions? Good. The next thing I have is just I enclosed a flyer because I won't meet with you prior to our 5th annual trunk or treat up on the farm, Saturday, October 20th, 6 to 8 p.m. That's where they dress up the back of a vehicle, and some of the members that come do, costume. It's been a big hit because everybody does their haunted houses the week of Halloween. We just do it a week prior, and it works out well. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Thanks.
Sure.
We have a couple guests here today. Revolution Rail came down and would like to provide the committee with an update on how they're doing. So I will turn it over to them.
Hey everyone, thanks for having us, giving us a little time. I just wanted to introduce ourselves first. My name is Robert Hart. This is my partner, Mike Dupie. We're with the Revolution Rail Company. We started, a little over a year ago, and we wanted to introduce ourselves because we've been reading a lot about the railroad and hearing a lot from different people, and we just thought we should tell people we're here, and we're operating north of the North Creek line. We've been running every day through the summer, 7 days a week, 4 to 5 trips a day, and after Labor Day we scaled back to 5 days a week. And what we do is we run rail bikes, and I guess.
Yeah, so what is a rail bike excursion? A lot of people aren't familiar with it. So we've got these 2 and 4-seat custom rail bikes. We designed and built them ourselves. Customers come to town in North Creek. They check in at the North Creek station. We put them on a shuttle bus. We run them north, just over the line, just past North River, just into Indian Lake. There's a rafting takeout spot there. get them on the bikes. They run a 7-mile round trip, so 3.5 miles up, 3.5 back, along the Hudson, over the Trestle Bridge. They take a break by the Boreas River, then back on the bikes, back to the launch site, back on the bus, back to town, where they get a chance to buy some souvenirs, buy some lunch in town, maybe get some gas, and then go on with their trip. So that's a rail bike excursion.
Yeah, we like I said, we started last July in 2017, and we just had a few bikes. By the end of the year, that season, we had doubled our fleet, and we were taking 30 people a day, 4 times a day, 4 to 5 times a day. And then this season, we started up in Mother's Day. We were running weekends until June 20th. And again, we started then, after June 20th, we were doing 7 days a week. And what happened was we put an investment into social media. So our marketing efforts, everything went into social media, and we've had a lot of success with that. We've had a few videos that have gone viral on that, and to put that into terms, it's like we've had videos that have had 17 million views, 10 million views, 5 million views, total of over 33 million views of people looking at our experience. But what that means is they're becoming exposed to North Creek, and then to flower that out, they're all telling us they're staying in all over the area, Luzerne and Lake George and everywhere around here, and they're coming from Michigan and Denmark and California and Florida and South Carolina. We have a map where everyone just kind of pins where they've come from, and it's humbling, and we're really thankful. But I also think there is a benefit that maybe isn't really known of what that means for everyone, and we're excited about how the community's embraced us, and yeah, we're happy to be here, and we just kind of felt like people didn't know us, so.
Yeah, so and then we'll close with just some actual numbers. So since we opened, we've employed 19 different people, $100,000 in wages, over $30,000 in federal and local taxes, donations to 15 local and regional organizations in-kind donations valued at $2,000. We've got the videos Rob mentioned with over 33 million views. We estimate we've brought 20,000 people to this area. So that impact, of course, Rob used the term flowering out. If you think everybody's come to town, they're spending money on the airline tickets, they're spending money on gas, they're buying breakfast or lunch or dinner or T-shirts. They're going to book an additional excursion. They might, be going over to Bolton Landing or to do Adirondack Extreme or to Blue Mountain Lake for the Adirondack Experience or taking a rafting trip. If we just made a conservative assumption that each of those people spent $10, the impact is easily into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, as Rob mentioned in the intro, lots of talk about the railroad and that it's not being used or not being used properly. Well, we're putting it to use that we think is really providing a great benefit for this region, and we want to continue to do that. We just hope y'all can keep that in mind, and we'd be grateful for your support as events continue to develop.
Thank you. Supervisor Merlino?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I remember our reporter back there and myself, we took the first trip.
We did.
I have it on my phone, video of the whole trip, and I do show it to my guests, and I know they've been up. So,
Great.
it's a great job. Everybody enjoys it.
Thanks, Jim.
And you had really good weather in between some of the rainstorms, but that's good.
Cool.
Great job.
Supervisor Leggett?
Can you, what's your ridership profile?
Do you know that, Mike?
We don't have, now the software that we use for booking doesn't capture that. I mean, anecdotally, I think we'd say last year it skewed younger and more American. And I'd say that because this year I think we've seen a lot more from over the border in Canada coming down, and we've seen, again, anecdotally, the average age skew a little bit older. We've seen more seniors come out. But we don't have hardcore data on that right now. A lot of families, absolutely. We can take on these bikes any age. The oldest we've had is a 94-year-old woman who pedaled the whole damn way. She wasn't going to get cheated. And a 4-week-old. We had pregnant women, but I don't know if we can count those babies. But a 4-week-old. Parents can strap the babies right on their chest and ride with them. If they're old enough to sit up on their own, we've got a 5-point harness so they get their own seat. So absolutely, family reunions, camps will come and rent the whole fleet at a given time. Yeah.
Supervisor Conover, did you still have a question?
I did, not for these gentlemen though, after the finish.
Oh, okay.
Chairman, thank you. Guys, any future plans? Did you get can tell us about expansion?
We're open.
There's nothing firm or definite. We're certainly interested in developing the business and expanding, but there's nothing to talk about yet.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Supervisor Conover?
Yes, if we're going to move on to privilege of the floor before you do, my understanding is
I had
that
one.
we've received some material as of yesterday.
I have one more thing, though, before we go into the privilege of the floor. I wasn't sure what you were going to bring up, but one thing that we need to talk about because of the deadline is the abandonment action New York State has filed with the Surface Transportation Board, abandonment of the railroad. Essex County and the town of Newcomb have taken a position opposing the abandonment action. I believe Hamilton County is also considering it. I'm not sure whether they've, I haven't been updated as to whether they've taken a position yet. But my interpretation of it is that it would limit our options on our railroad if the state was successful. It's stated in there that the rails are of no use, basically there's no viable business, and that it would be best suited towards a recreational uses. So we have a window, a 45-day window from the time that was filed, and that deadline is October 23rd, which we don't meet again except as a full board between now and then. I think we should take a position in that abandonment action. We have a lot at stake here. We actually own the 40 miles from Anton Mountain Road north. The Sanford Lake line is owned by Mr. Ellis at this moment. There is a company that's in Omnitrax that is interested in purchasing that line. There's interest in hauling the stone south, developing that market out of Tahoz. And it seems to me that this abandonment action is not what we would desire.
I'd make a motion that we send them a letter opposing the abandonment, and that we have somebody possibly interested, and we want to keep our options open, and it's a serious draw on the county, though, owning the railroad tracks if nothing's going on. He's looking at $300,000 a year just to try to hold status quo. So I would make that motion that we contact and tell them we are adamantly opposed to abandoning any part of the track.
Okay. Are you seconding it?
Yeah, I'm going to second that, because right now, I mean, we want to wait another year, 2 years, then maybe we can get into it if it doesn't work out with other people who use the track, but should give it up right now. So I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Supervisor Wild.
Make it
Chairman,
good.
thank you. Make it good. I'm curious. The Surface Transportation Board will have to take into effect any current or future business, if I'm not mistaken. So basically, they'll be evaluating what will be evaluated. So I'm not sure if there's any benefit to taking this action. I'm not sure if there's any risks for not taking this action, or there is. So maybe our county attorney can weigh in a little bit in terms of the risks of moving forward one way or another, if there are any.
I would just like to respond that we do. It's just like a public hearing. You have a 45-day window, and you know, Warren County owns property that's connected and dependent upon the property that's being decided on. So I think it would certainly be in our best interest to protect the interests of Warren County taxpayers. The value of the line.
May I ask for clarification? The abandonment is just for the Sanford line? It's not for our line inclusive?
Right. It's not our line.
I think I would support that motion.
Good man. That's the right answer.
Did you add anything to that? Supervisor Hogan.
This is really a question for Mary. Would this also be an appropriate time to weigh in on opposition to the storage of rail cars? Is this an opportunity to let the STB know where we might stand on that?
I mean, we could certainly put it in our papers. I don't know if they're gonna, I don't know how much stock they're gonna put in that during an abandonment proceeding.
From the discussions I've had with DEC attorneys and everybody else that's related, the STB doesn't regulate storage. They actually protect railroad operations. And
But they do grant common carriers.
yes. I don't know.
I'd have to look.
Yeah, it's a little different than what I was told, but I know that the DEC is protecting their interest to not have any storage whatsoever on the Sanford Lake line. Did you?
No,
I was looking at Chairman Conover. I didn't know if he had something.
No, I was, had
Okay.
not right now.
Just a process question. This letter, the subject of the motion, is this expressing the opinion of the Public Works Committee, or is it the intention to express the opinion of the Board of Supervisors?
Well, right now, it's just Public Works. So we pass it on to, we got a board meeting, right?
We do.
So we come before the board.
Okay.
Supervisor Bramer?
As you mentioned, the Sanford Lake line is not our line. I don't think that we should be getting involved. We're not Essex County. And if there are potential prospective users of the line of Sanford Lake line, let them fight the fight.
Supervisor Hogan?
I'd like to argue that, as the guys from Referral just told us, it very much, what happens on that line very much impacts the line.
Correct. Okay, any other discussion? Call the question. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Sure. So, at this point, we have privilege of the floor. Is there anything, Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, my understanding, Ryan, is that we have received some material yesterday from our friends at Stony Creek, and listen, I'm willing to sit here to listen to the presentation as long as it takes. However, in order to try to get somewhere with this, I think that material needs to be distributed to our attorney's office, our purchasing agent, obviously your own office, the Public Works office, all affected agencies and departments, so that we can ascertain what processes exist or don't exist, what issues exist or don't exist, what questions need to be answered, so that we can try to get someplace on this quickly. And I'm just trying to streamline this process here. Ryan, maybe you could, as I say, I'm glad you're here. I'm certainly be happy to hear what you have to say. I'm excited for the Stony Creek Ranch and continuation of the marvelous activity. But there's a lot of questions, not the least of which is hearing from the department, the affected department, in terms of contractual arrangements and all of the kinds of things. And I don't think, with all due respect, Mr. Chairman, I don't think we're going to get there today relative to all these matters. So my recommendation to the committee, to you, is that we do something like that, and let's try to garner that information just as quickly as we can. But there may need to be some exchange between the parties in the county for other specific information that's not included in the material that we received, and let's just see where it goes. That would be my recommendation. And I look forward to any presentation.
If I could just ask the folks from Stony Creek, I've received this packet, which is essentially a prospectus on what you intend to do.
Right.
Did we miss, is this all that we've received so far? Did I miss anything else that may have been sent that bounced back because it was too large? Is this all that we have at this point?
As of this point, that's what we have available, but we have other information that's available upon your request. I know that you'll have multiple questions, and definitely we're going to have a conversation back and forth.
Okay.
We're providing with materials as fast as we can.
Yeah, because nothing in here really speaks to the terms that we would have to have in a contract, indemnification, fees, and the like.
Of course, and that would be something we would have to set up if we could expedite as soon as possible.
Okay.
More or less, we're just coming to you to kind of, if I may I start to address the floor, or...
Sure, you done? Okay, sure.
Yeah, and she'll provide you with the same package provider at the podium, if I may. Alan, am I with you? Right now, go ahead. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Scott McLean. I am the owner of the Stony Creek Ranch Resort. I believe I came in front of this same committee about a month and a half ago, kind of proposing what we are here today to discuss. I hope to kind of get into a bit more detail and give you more specifics than we were able to at the time. I apologize for the lateness of this. I know at the time I told you what type of deadline are we looking for, and I said September. Well, it is still September 28th, so I figure I got 48 hours here. Let me tell you about where we were and where we are today. When I last came to you, we were still pursuing trying to have the Polar Express at the ranch. It was going to be a major revenue factor for us in our fourth quarter. While we did have a very successful summer, definitely trying to find ways to increase revenue and making us a 365 property were expectations that my investors as well as everybody from the community were looking for. For me, the ultimate answer to this obviously was trying to bring in an intellectual property that had a draw to bring in 25,000, 30,000 people into the community. We had been in talks with Warner Brothers for more than a year and a half, and through Rail Events, who is their brand manager. At the time, we were unable to acquire the license due to the ownership of the train company, or at least the use of the train tracks by the operator at the time, Iowa Pacific. When Iowa Pacific was no longer in the picture, Warner Brothers and I could enter into this type of communication. You can see Dave Schrank is here today. He is representing Rail Events. He is their brand manager. He came all the way from Colorado. He's supposed to be leaving this morning, but he was so kind to please delay his flight so he can answer any questions that you may have while he was here. He is representing, he's the brand manager for Warner Brothers, specifically for Polar Express, so he can answer any specific questions you may have regarding that. During the time when I last spoke to you and where we are today, we had to jump over certain hurdles that made it a little bit more difficult on our part, which we realized the only answers to qualify or to appease county officials would be to create our own train operation that would have no agendas or no other issues that may cause any concern amongst county officials as to what our ultimate goal was. When I try to relay what the intent of this is just to create a train operation for 45 days for the holidays to allow access for the Polar Express to entertain 25 to 30,000 guests and to then disappear magically on December 26th. Sort of like how you have the Spirit Halloween store down at the Toys R Us right now that could sit there remaining empty, not creating any revenue. Instead, you have a Spirit Halloween store that shows up for 30 or 35 days, sells a bunch of Halloween stuff, and then packs it out on November 1st. We would exist in the very same fashion. When we put this together, obviously there were certain governmental agencies that we needed to get approval for, the biggest one being the Federal Railroad Administration. We had to supply a bunch of information to them. I then got on the phone with the head of the FRA and explained to them the immediacy of this and obviously the extraordinary circumstances that we were dealing with, as well as the potential impact it would be to our region to have that for this year. There are many businesses who are watching this, trying to figure out if this will be a way that they can count to increase their fourth quarter revenue. They then, she then made a phone call, called me back 30 minutes later and said, be prepared to give a presentation to 15 members of the FRA board in 24 hours in a teleconference. We put together everything we could. My two partners on this, Hal and Jeff, were able to put together all of the information that they needed to, provided that to the FRA, and we met their qualifications, and FRA recognized the
startup of what we are naming for the time being the Stony Creek and Hudson Railway. Again, this is just created for the Polar Express. Yes?
I apologize to interrupt, but if you have any documentation that speaks to that approval from the FRA, we would appreciate getting that as well.
Happy to send you the email with the approval from them. That's no
Okay.
problem. I can put you in touch also with Janet Lee. She is the head of the FRA. She was a key point as far as getting that taken care of.
Okay.
So I'd be happy to pass information along to you. Hal, who is a partner on the train with me, has been acting as taking care of all type of codes and operations of the train. Jeff is working with us in order to be able to acquire any of the train cars, everything else that goes along with that, the actual mechanics of the operation. Just kind of the quick facts on it. Again, this is a temporary entity. This will be for 6 weeks. The instant economic impact of this is I will have to immediately, just for Polar Express, hire 75 people. That's just to operate the train and to get the Polar Express intellectual property running, with an estimated budget of $200,000 to salary. There's also additional jobs that are not brought in with that 75. That is what the resort will have to hire, because I'm expecting more people to be staying at the resort at a period of time I would usually be closed, as well as additional kitchen staff, dining room, housekeeping, reservations, you name it, I need to hire that. Not only myself, this morning I came from my chamber's meeting. We had to elect our new officials, and I stated that this would be something I was presenting to the county today. They all are going to be watching this today because they are of the same opinion. If this moves forward, they will have to staff up more, or they will be able to staff that they plan on having go on unemployment. They will then forward to me to be able to use for this purpose. So there are lots of jobs that will be created out of this. Again, these are seasonal jobs and people who are usually on unemployment, and we are going to have to hire very quickly. Local vendors, another thing that's always been brought to me is if we will have opportunities for local vendors to be able to sell. Of course, if I'm having 25, 30,000 people walk through my door, yes, it'll help me, but I want to help the community. We have booths for local vendors that will be available to them to be able to sell their local wares. Just like I know that we have a new welcoming center down the road, I'd love to have something like that. These will be people who will be coming to our region. Let's let them know that what we've got here in the region. Let's show them all the unique little local places that we have and sell them cheeses made from the goat cheese farm up the road, maple sugar candies, homemade items, stuff like that. They're going to love it. We're obviously going to need nightly bands and DJs, TV coverage. We've already been in talks with 1 or 2 TV shows who will be covering us, as well as news shows. While I can't get into the specifics as to what television show it will be, I do have a major television show coming to my property within about a week. That television show is shown on, I believe, 163 countries with millions of people who view it. Stony Creek will be definitely seen. The Lake George region will be seen. Queensbury will be seen. Word will be out, and we expect that to also drive interest into the area. So already we have television interest who are watching this, want to come to the area and experience this for themselves. Charity runs for fundraising purposes. We have already reached out to 1 or 2 charity groups in the area to be able to provide toys and fundraising efforts for local kids in the area who would go without it that season. It's important not only for the business community to prosper, but for our local community organizations who are dependent upon this time of year for charity, for them to be able to take care of those who are in need. That is a major component of why I got into this, and it's something that I want to continue doing. Partners, just some of the basic stats as far as Polar Express. There are 45 Polar Expresses globally, including 3 in Canada and 3 in the United Kingdom. Ridership as of 2017 is 1,117,000 annually, with an average event ridership of 25,000. Average ticket prices go for about $50 a piece, so you're more than welcome to do the math on that. I am a medium, small-sized property. I can only fit so many people. I am definitely going to have to work with hotel pit partners in the area in order to be able to house people who plan on coming up from New York or planning on coming from Canada, or from all over the region, to really just be able to take care of those large numbers that we are expecting. With working with Polar Express and known intellectual property, obviously the movie everyone's familiar with, as well as the book. It's a television show that will be played multiple times on major cable networks, and families have a tradition of going and experiencing and wanting to bring their children on this train so that they could experience it with their children. And I would love for Stony Creek and for our region to be the new host for that. I know it used to exist down in Saratoga Springs. We are excited to have rail events, and Warner Brothers be considering our ranch to bring this experience here. And I know these are extraordinary circumstances, and I know timeliness is something that we're all taking into effect. So if there is anything that we can do to expedite this process and to work with you and answer any questions for, that's why we are all here today, and we will do anything within our power to do so. So I thank you for your time. I thank you for your patience on this matter. And again, if there is anything that we can do to assist in this matter, that is why we are here. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions?
I just want to stress we're behind the 8 ball here. We asked for a written proposal on July 24th, and we're told we would get it that night, and we're still waiting for it. So the sooner the better.
We will be happy to provide it at the time. It would not have looked like how it does today. Obviously, we had another partner at the time who we were working with within Supervisor that no longer existed, so we did have to put together a train operation within about a month and a half. So, yes, I am putting that together, and I will have all those numbers for you and a proposal for you. That is also why Mr. Dave Schrank is here. And again, he is from Warner Brothers and Rail Events, representing them in business matters. They would not face this property here, this very important and influential property here, if they did not feel it would be a return on their investment.
And we did have a train company lined up willing to work with us, but they picked up and there was a contention issue situation, and they withdrew. So we have spent the time trying to locate another train company who does not feel that they are getting into the process.
We've taken a personal, taken a lot of personal sacrifice and investment to make this happen. It's not cheap to rent a train or train cars or to get Warner Brothers here, but I'm willing to take that risk. Yes?
Well, getting too far into the weeds.
Yes.
So you have permission to run across the Main Pacific up to the ranch if we give you permission to run across our line?
We can get equipment shipped to us. We are considered a non-insular tourist operation from the Federal Railroad Administration. Our reporting marks are FCH, and Canadian Pacific will simply interchange any equipment to us that we will pick up. We would not run over Canadian Pacific. We would not go past the control point at TPC 38, which is where the Canadian Pacific line starts. So it would be just provided to us, and we would bring it to our area of operation that is in that packet that we would confine to basically.
So they're going to ship it up to you via rail?
They would ship it on rail.
I know that was one of the contentions we had with Iowa, getting permission to go across the rail.
Yep. They will deliver it just onto the property, onto the town of Corinth property, I guess right there in Saratoga, where we would be able to get it without having to go on to Canadian Pacific property.
And you have switchbacks that you'll be able to use to reverse the train?
Yep. Once the train's assembled at Stony Creek, it's essentially just going to run forward and reverse. It's just going to, one segment of track, forward.
So you're not going to the Thurman station and going to switchback there?
Not quite as far. Yep. Very, very simple, very streamlined operation for the period that we're running, centralized from the ranch location, traveling in one direction, 3 miles or so, then reversing north, stopping at basically at Canton Town, then proceeding south again to disembark the passengers at the ranch. Very, very small, smooth operation.
Because I see you wanted permission to go to North Creek.
That's the purpose of the maintenance of the locomotive. By federal standards, we have to, in order to go inspect it, have a pit. Both pits on the property are located in North Creek.
In the event that we had to do something, but most of the operation will be confined essentially from milepost A62.4 to A72.4, 10-mile segment, essentially between Wolf Creek and Thurman, to be the area of operation.
Supervisor Hogan?
Questions with the common carrier status? How does that impact their?
I talked to our outside counsel, and he said because they're not running over state lines, common carrier status doesn't even enter into this.
They're just a forest operation, not a forest operation.
Okay, and in here you propose to maintain a section of the track, what section are you proposing to maintain?
The section that we would operate in between Wolf Creek and Third.
So say you need to run to North Creek.
We would inspect the track,
Have it inspected.
and providing it needed anything done, we would have it done. If it was okay for rail travel, we would go.
Essentially, they would be non-revenue moves if we had to run up there for some reason.
So you'd only make any repairs if you discover them in the event that you have to make repairs.
That we had to go up there. But in the section that we operate, the 10 miles section that we plan on operating would be inspected on a weekly basis and maintained to make sure that there was no defects or anything that would prohibit operations in our area of operation.
Supervisor Conover?
Do you have a standardized prototype, typical contract that you utilize between yourselves and the owner of the rail for such activities? With the business arrangement, I don't get to run the weeds either, but with the business arrangement, I would assume would be between you as the carrier and the owner of the railroad. And so if you have any information or anything that would assist the process by providing it to us examples of other areas, the type of financial arrangement in particular, but also I'm sure arrangements like this must articulate liability, insurances, hold harmless, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And also any information you have relative to your safety record, your anything dealing with public safety would be imperative for us obviously to have to see. But I'm assuming that as the owner of the rail, that we would be entering into some kind of agreement with the operator of the rail for this one event during this very specific time frame. So any information like that can help our departments evaluate what we have in front of us would be great assistance. Great assistance.
If a person is a railroad order that runs over someone else's line, and I can ask if he could send us a redacted copy, doesn't show anything, it's intellectual, proprietary to now, that would give us an idea from starting point.
I think anything like that would be very, very helpful. We're basically starting from ground zero here.
Small contract for basically the owner of the line to the operator for a very limited window of operation to make this work.
What's worth Onondaga County and Syracuse leases several pieces of track to Fingerlink Railway, New York, Susquehanna, and Leicester. They may also lease where the county might be able to get something out of. The county and others might be able to get some kind of an idea of what they do.
Supervisor Wild?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a comment that we as a committee and the board in general take into account that we really don't have a good feeling about the condition of this track as it is today. So that if we do enter into an agreement, it is not a lost leader for the county, but we get stuck with some maintenance or bridge that needs to be repaired or something to that effect. That this is something that would be borne by whoever we might lease these tracks to for the city. Because I just don't want us to lose money in this deal.
To maybe follow up on that point, what would be a timetable for your inspections and any work that you would need to do? Because, I mean, would you be prepared to indemnify the county for the process of doing those inspections? How would you do it? Are you going to use a high rail? We need to figure out all those details.
It would definitely be a high rail truck, probably use legal as a contractor, probably already the county.
And do you have insurance?
It would be, yeah, having it onto my current insurance that I hold in the branch.
Any maintenance control would be done by a rail contractor.
And that would have to be included in agreement with the county because it's our asset, and we would need our DPW team to...
Standards that it's been maintained to, we're going to maintain the section that we operate on to FRA Class 2 standards. The railroad's in reasonably good shape considering the level of service they have been running at it. I'm sure there are some, obviously some areas that need attention, but for what we're going to 10 miles an hour just to get it up there, and we're only going to be operating at a maximum speed of 10 to 15 miles per hour in our area of operation. So, you know, we're not looking to be zipping up down the line at 25 or 30 miles an hour. So,
Class 1? It's Class 1 rail, I was just being told.
That speed is called Class 1, correct?
That
The
speed
speed
is called
is-
Class 1, correct?
track standard, it's maintained, right now it is maintained in Class 2, we're up to 30 miles per hour. Class 1 allows you basically up to 10 miles an hour. So, we would obviously look to maintain our section to the safest standard.
Supervisor Wild.
Thanks. To be fair to our guests, does a timeline seem like this is possible to happen between now and the middle of October? Knowing how fast government works coming from the private sector.
We don't have a board meeting, and our next board meeting is until the 19th
of October.
So in reality, we have to get a contract and it has to go through all sorts of reviews, and the maintenance of the line
Committees.
needs to be evaluated in committee meetings. Is there any reasonable expectation that this could happen?
That's
I hate that, you know, we have guests here today that are setting a proposal that would like to move forward, but if we can't even approximately come close to meeting these deadlines, it would be unfair for us not to let them know now, while we're here.
Supervisor Garrity?
Well, that depends on them. If they can get the information to us at plenty of time, there's no reason why we couldn't try to accommodate the project. But I mean, the time, that's all up to them. They have to provide us with all this information. If they get it to us on the 18th of October, guess what? It's not going to happen. But I mean,
That's what it's implying. What's the timeline?
To me, it's all on them. And I don't know how long Larry and Ryan would need to review this information.
The timeline was yesterday. I mean, but as Kevin said, it's in the proposed operator's hands. The more quickly you can get this to us, the more quickly we can resolve the concerns that we have entering into a contract.
Just to drive it down a little bit further though, right? So if October 10th, just to pick a date out of the air, if they gave us a complete proposal by October 10th, do we think we could respond in that time frame?
We would have to approve it in this committee, approve the terms of a contract in this committee, approve it in the Board of Supervisors, and have an actual contract executed in time for them to begin their operation, which is November 15th or October 15th?
It'll be the day after Thanksgiving.
Okay. Because last night, I think we were talking about October 15th? Okay.
Well, there would be, the passengers would go in on the Thanksgiving, we would possibly have to do a rehearsal on the days before, and of course there's staff to go
Along with this discussion, and I'm glad Mr. Hagan is here. Mr. Hagan? Mr. Hagan? Along with this discussion of timelines, and you know, I'm glad you're here. We've had an ongoing issue with timelines, which trying to get the equipment and everything off of our tracks and out of Johnsburg. And it's been a real issue. We've had a lot of communications and a lot of deadlines that have not been met, a lot of promises, and we're at the end of the line, so to speak. I want to know today, as chairman of this committee who's had to answer these questions, and you know, poor Supervisor Hogan up in Johnsburg having to field the concerns over the last 3 months of trying to have this happen. I want to know here today, in front of the Board of Supervisors, when that's going to be off.
I have a tractor trailer actually inbound as we speak. I've contacted Inns Motor Freight, who did the last trailer load out. I'm actually funding it myself personally now, because Iowa Pacific has stopped all funding and resources altogether. I actually had a fight with Ed Ellis because I basically told him if he didn't put diesel fuel in the locomotive, I was getting in my truck and I was leaving, and whatever happened to his stuff happened to his stuff. And suddenly the fuel truck showed up in the morning. But we should have the remaining parts out of North Creek by the end of the week. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. So.
I mean, we've heard deadlines. Before I've heard that same.
Yeah, everything.
And Riparian?
This week?
Riparian is a slightly different scenario. Riparian will attract material that there's questionable ownership issues on. And that's one thing that I don't know what anyone wants to do about. It's some of the rail...
Why is this the first we're hearing about this now?
This would actually be my first meeting here. And I wasn't sure how you guys wanted to approach that because I can't get an answer out of anyone as to who owns what. So basically what Iowa Pacific is told me at this point is that we have to do it behind the So I have 2 trucks down there and that's all that's left there. And
There's nothing inside the building?
we clean everything of ourselves. All tools, miscellaneous material. We did try to sell the material, but no one got back to us on it. So apparently track material isn't a loan right now. So, but that could come in handy for the county if there's any repairs necessary to be made for the line to be usable. You have the material there. That's an uptick for you guys.
Did you want to ask him? You had your hand up.
No, I'm...
Oh, okay. So this Friday, or next Friday, you're saying?
Yes. I'll actually have the 2 trucks hauled out of Rotarius this weekend. I'll call a tow truck and just get them hauled away. And then when the tractor trailer gets there, the backhoe will load it, and the backhoe will follow behind and leave the county.
Supervisor Hogan?
It'll be
October 6th.
The next Friday is the 7th.
Yes.
Supervisor Conover?
Yeah, I think,
No, that would be the 5th.
I must say the wrong month.
I think Supervisor Garrity really said it very well. I mean, a lot of it is, I believe most of it is in your hands. For example, on the question of insurances, the motel responded and you didn't. So, who's providing the insurance? Who's the insurance company? What's the credibility of who's standing behind any indemnifications? This is all information that we're going to have. Okay, I'm just saying that that's the kind of information that's going to have to come. It's got to come very, very, very quickly. We don't know what, in the end, what our timeline will be because we've got departments that this has to be run through that are going to be looking at this for the first time. So we can't make any commitments that way. Except, for me, we have a local business. I would surely like to try to make something happen if we can. But given the date and given, I think, the volume of information that's going to have to come very, very quickly, I mean, just the development of contracts, bonds, et cetera, that you don't even control. Your insurance people control, that maybe our people control. These things are all going to add to the timeline. But I think that, to respond to Supervisor Wild, it's a very prohibitive timeline. But, I mean, if you're willing to at least investigate this with us, with that understanding that we can't make any complete date-specific promises, that, I think my feeling is we should extend ourselves.
We would like very much to see this happen to impact the economic status of this area. When we explained that to the FRA, within 48 hours, they held an emergency meeting, and it was done by conference call, and we got our point. As far as Polar Express, Mr. Strank jumped on a plane and came out here because they're so supportive. As far as the insurance, our financial backers are 100% in back of us financially, liability-wise. We have the expertise as far as running a train. But please remember, this is not Ed Ellis. We are not Ed Ellis. We are the Stony Creek and Hudson Rail Line. And we would like very much to get the support of the county in helping to improve the economic position.
Supervisor Garrity?
And, I'll just reiterate what I said before. We will support you believe you would have support of the county. The onus is on you to get the documents to our attorney and to our administrator in a timely fashion. And if these so-called deadlines aren't met, don't come back to it's not going to be the county. It's clearly on Stony Creek Ranch and your partners to provide us what we need. And that's, I'm not opposed to coming in for meetings of committees at any time if we can make something happen. The problem is, the deadlines have been set before. The deadlines have never been met on this. You seem sincere about what you want to do. It seems like you got a good operator, but please understand, you have to supply the information to the attorney. You have to supply the information to our administrator in a timely fashion. And like I said, it cannot be October 15th and expect that we're going to reconvene in 3 days and know what's going on. You know that from a business standpoint.
Of course, and I was happy to provide all that information back in July. That's fine, but obviously things have changed the following day, so I had to...
But you got to communicate. Communication is the...
Supervisor Merlino?
I'm going to give the administrator and the supervisor.
Well, I'm fully supportive of these people, and I really am, and I think we all should be. This is a one-shot deal, not a forever deal. Maybe we can learn a lot, that if it's successful, then next year we can move forward with something else or more to it. But I have to agree with Mr. Gary. You gotta get it. There's a lot of people that are like this because Ed Ellis really hurt our county and hurt a lot of little businesses and hurt
Me too.
So they are a little shell-shocked, and so you got to understand what. But if you get this information, and I'm agreeing with Kevin Garrity here, we could meet again at a special meeting for an hour or two. Most of us would love to show up and hear what you have to say.
Happy to supply that, and frankly, the only thing I would ask of you, if you could be specific about the exact information that you require, you will be amazed how quickly I can turn that around.
Well, I think did you hear that, Mr. Ryan, what he just said?
I'm sorry, I missed it.
Okay, I was just saying, I would be more than you will find out how timely I am in responding to any questions or any information that you request. What I simply need to know is what information that you need. If you can communicate that to me, the sooner the better. I'd be happy to do that. And again, phone calls directly to me or to my business, since I'm the one who will be working as the operator and I'm working with my partners on this. That way there is no miscommunication as to who are the people involved with this. So again, if there is whatever information you need, the sooner you provide that to, you will be amazed how quickly I will get that back to you, because I want to see this happen. My investors want me to see this happen. The region wants me to see this happen. I have the amounts. My bank has given me the funds already into my account with the express that I am not to touch it until I have county approval for this. So that is just how much we are ready to go.
Mr. Hagan?
Just like to point out, especially based on the Ed Ellis part of it, please don't condemn every passenger railroad. Mr. Ellis' actions, he is one of a kind. As you guys know, I've been personally funding cleaning up his mess up here because I actually care about the state and these communities. And this railroad, believe it or not, I've gotten more attracted to it as days go by. You know, special fund at this point. Everyone took a hit from Ellis. Let's show him we can all make it work without him. It's stuff right back in his face.
Supervisor Weil?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Who's responsible? I have two questions. Actually, a question and a comment. Whose responsibility is it to draft the contract? Typically.
Typically, we draft them, the county.
Do we have a straw man that we could provide them that they could work from?
I don't currently. I can draft one.
The second comment, Scott, is to you and your team, right? The equipment up in North Creek is a big issue. Jeff has made some commitments in the past that we haven't been able to realize. This Friday will be important. Right? Let's make sure that happens. It doesn't happen if we strike against you guys, and it would hurt my support moving forward.
Okay, and I would be happy to do so. Mr. Higgins doing so on behalf of his contract with IPH. I understand that. He is working independently for that. We had brought him on because obviously his assistance as far as identifying mechanicals that need to make this happen. You know, Mr. Hagan is working against many obstacles, including the death of one of his former staffers. So So he has had some personal tragedies that he's been dealing with, as I can imagine all are sensitive to. So while he and his staff have been dealing with that, and with obviously difficulties from Mr. Ellis, I can speak to the fact that Mr. Hagan and his group have put in a lot of hours to try and make this a reality.
Don't get me wrong, I fully appreciate everything you said. What my point is that he's one of your principals.
Sure.
Right here. So he's part of the management team that makes this happen. And I would hold all the management team accountable if we fall through on one of the events that we've just committed to. So do what you can. We missed Friday. I'm just saying it would detract from my support moving forward because it's a trust issue. So.
And I'm one of the principals. I've got a PhD, but I'm a former, among other things, Army Transportation Officer. I'll drive trucks or whatever it is to get the stuff down.
This is also your UN weapons inspector for weapons of biological destruction in Iraq. So his word means something.
Just the county supervisor.
We all have a vested interest in this. We want to see this line succeed. I think there's ways to do this. It's good for the county, good for tourism, good for this. But we all have a vested local interest in this. That outside companies that just want to get their money's worth on. So.
And I was approached by many of them, and I just want to tell you that right now. You wanted to ask why it has been since July that I spoke to you. I have reached out to and spoken to many other train operators who essentially would have dealt with Mr. Ellis did again. And I felt that whether through just my own gut instinct or whether through feedback that I received, we would be putting ourselves into the position again. And that is why I took it upon myself to form my own train operation. So that is my name on the line.
And one more comment. I recall the last time you were here, I had asked if you could incorporate North Creek into your plans. Now, it may not fit this year, but if this is successful moving forward, I'd really like to see that next year.
We would love to see that too. That unfortunately came to an issue with the FRA. And we would love to work that issue out. And possibly there's something we could do to make that work. I know Hal and I can speak to you afterwards to see what issues can be resolved on that. But of course, we would love to involve as much of the train as we can in North Creek with historical significance in place.
All the communities are important to this.
Essentially, with this operation, we needed to conduct put the operation within a zone where we were traveling over the least amount of crossings at grade with active grade protection, and this particular area of operation at the ranch puts us in a location where we don't have to be traveling over crossings with active grade protection, and the only thing that's included in this section is basically private crossings. So, because of the short term, if we get this started, that would be really the only way to
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me?
Need a motion to adjourn?
No. I was going to ask the committee first. I've got to leave here at 2:30. Kevin has a budget presentation that we can either do right now or we can do Tuesday at 9 o'clock. But I need to know if
would be nice.
we have a meeting at 10. So it has to be 9. If we don't do it today,
Can't stay, I'm sorry, I told Kevin last night, I can't stay past 1:30, I'm already.
we don't need a quorum to review the budget, but
You got an extra copy of it, Kevin?
They have a cover sheet that'll give you a pretty good explanation of where we're at.
the rest of the committee want to go through this. It probably won't take an awful long, or do we want to do this on Tuesday? Huh?
I said I came late, I have to.
Okay.
So this is quick. So how much you take off the budget this year, Kevin?
Some. I also added some as well. Yeah.
Sounds like you need a cup of coffee. We're going to go just big numbers.
Started thinking it's Mr. Moore's.
I'm sick and tired of this.
Thank Thank you.
Was I
I'm actually
overboard?
just going to move down so I can see the screen.
That was jacked.
Oh,
I'll go quick, I promise.
Don't worry about me.
Get him.
Yeah, I didn't bring myself. I'm doing it today.
Frank said he was going to couple, right?
We want
You just said you were going to couple more anyway, so it's going to change. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it or not, but I actually provided a cover sheet.
Oh, I can see that.
That's good.
Oh, the inspections, I know.
How's that? I got a harder time to go from looking here and jumping up there, and I can't do it. No, no.
Say that again?
You're gonna sit next to me. I gotta be able to see
Let's
that.
say that we're responsible for maintenance, right?
Legal Solutions, they were the ones that, we're not saying anything bad about them, but
Not
No,
good
maintenance
either.
right now is Warren County.
they reached out first, as soon as that else was done, what can we do for you?
I think Kevin's ready to go, everybody.
Yes.
Okay. Very quickly, Tim just handed out sort of a summary of the budget requests that I had for this year. The items that are underlined are strictly for DPW. The rest of them are for facilities and Park O&M, which I will discuss on Monday and Tuesday. I'll go through real quick. You can look at the 2017-18 adopted budgets, or the actual budget for 2017, the 18 adopted, actual where we are right now with 18, and then what we're requesting in 2019. As I go down the line, you'll see some changes, and I'll start right on this cover sheet with DPW admin. We're dropping, I think, total compared to 2018 budget by $3,000. So there's no increase to that. Mainly that's due to, I think, retirement and health insurance. As we get down, and I can have Tim jump in as well, under Parks and Rec, there is an increase of $27,000 in Parks and Rec. Mainly that comes from salaries within that department, and some contractual services. I believe we have some roof work on some of the buildings next year, as well as some tree removal, probably a significant amount of tree removal on the bike path. And that's mainly the increases that go along with that $27,000. And again, I want to apologize because I figured these meetings would run long today and that I wouldn't get the opportunity to put the budget in. So I was going to actually do this in October, but I didn't realize that Frank wanted them all done in September, so I will try to get it done now. As we go down the line, the next item we have is Up Yonda. Up Yonda, basically the revenues equal, and I think it needs to be changed. I thought my fiscal manager changed it, but the revenues basically equal the expenses in that. It's a wash. That's because of the trust. There really is no extra money. As Tim said, the extra revenue that we normally get in, he's going to receive some extra revenue based on the outreach program to the schools. The bed tax, again, that's a wash. That's the money that the Up Yonder receives, mainly from the town of Bolton and from the county. Again, that should be $13,000 and $13,000, and I will get that one straightened out. The snowmobile grant money doesn't show anything yet. Tim, I'll let you talk to this. I believe we'll get some word probably in November.
November. They base it on the prior year registration. Once they go through what they're working on now is what they call Phase 3, which they determine how much money was used from the prior year. They'll send us a letter and tell us what the award is.
I'll go down the line to the next one is the railroad. That's probably the big increase that you'll see under the Parks and Recreation sort of budget. Again, we don't, depending on what happens with the railroad, whether it's sold or whether we lease, some of this could change. But right now, this is mainly increased due to the costs that we are associated with us taking on the maintenance, increase in insurance, the keeping up the signals and such for
Taxes.
for that, as well as the taxes. That's a big part of this as well.
Class 1 and Class 2 circuits.
Class 2, correct, Tim?
Supposed to be at 2.
The 2, right.
Now, that's dictated by the Surface Transportation Board?
Oh, the condition of the tracks.
Which part of this, under that contractual or that increase in cost for next year as an expense, would be to have the track inspected by a company. I think we'll jump to the second page on there. This is DPW, this traffic, highway admin, engineering, maintenance. Again, you can look at the percentage either increase or decrease, as well as the dollar figure of increase or decrease. Under traffic, you'll see an increase of $33,000. That is mainly due to a piece of equipment that the traffic department has. As most of the towns know, we make all these signs for the roadways for each one of the towns. It is a cost to the towns, of course, but the equipment that we have and the programming and software that goes along with it is outdated. We can no longer get the updates for this piece of equipment. So that cost, the main part of that cost for traffic is associated with buying this new sign printing machine and the software and setup to go along with it. The highway admin, you'll see there's not a significant increase. Again, I think that's due mainly to, that's associated with retirement and health insurance. Engineering, as you all know, you'll see a decrease in engineering. That's mainly under salaries, that decrease. That comes from the reorganization that I brought last month for that department. Maintenance has increased because we have a couple projects next year, and I'd like to get into this one if I can. Let me run down to my budget sheets here. So I have an approximate increase for maintenance of about, I just want to say $44,000. Go down real quick. I think that's mainly due to, as I said, some increased maintenance costs for some of our facilities. They actually remain the same. I apologize. I mean, I'm not sure what that means.
Is there a roof? Did we do
Something
about a roof?
Well,
How much she would be.
we do have some roof repairs over at the shop. We also have over the shop. We have a problem with ice collection over the shop, and I think that's part of this. The ice that comes off the building sits in front of all of our bays along through there. So we put up gutter systems for this year, but now what we're doing is taking that water and pushing it towards the end of the buildings. So we're going to have to capture that storm water that comes off the roof now and push it farther away with a series of catch basins and piping to get it away from our facilities. So that's probably a large portion of this. We also are going to enclose both ends of our building at the shop. We have two wide open ends. We have one side of that has the 10,000 gallon fuel tank in it. The other side is the storage of equipment and vehicles. Within that, the fuel company that comes and fuels our tank really has given us a hard time whether or not they want to pull in there and fuel the tank anymore because of the pigeon feces and such that is associated in there. And we tried everything to keep them out. We're actually going to enclose those two ends of that building this year. So that's associated with some of that cost as well. I will jump down to the next one, which is county roads. I was hoping this would increase $800,000 as opposed to $400,000 for some of the roads that I need to get done for next year. When I met with the budget committee, I believe I had a budget of $3.2 million for road projects for next year. Right now, I think we're going to fund $2.7 million, so that would be an increase of $400,000. I believe over last year. I would hope maybe later on this year that I can come back and possibly ask for more money, as I explained in the budget committee. For me to maintain or stay up with the roads that I have and save the good roads that I have, I truly do need that $3.2 million. But that's a discussion that I can come back to later on. So the increase there is a $400,000 increase from the 2018 budget. That would give me up to the $2.7 million for this year.
Okay, well, help me understand. By not spending another $400,000, we're putting at risk how much? By not staying on top of these?
Probably 5 or 6 roads that are in that. I want to come back and give a presentation to the committee, but the level of a 7. A 7 is a road that I'd like to continue to maintain, keep. In the environment up here, a 7 typically within a year's time or 2 years' time can deteriorate to a 5 or a 4, and that's a reconstruction. If I can put the money to those roads now and save them, and typically, just to give a real quick example, to do preventive maintenance, we're in that $100,000, $200,000 range, depending on how many miles I want to do. When I start getting into reconstruction of roads, I'm upwards of $350,000 and $400,000. So if I can save the roads now with this preventive maintenance, I don't have to try to spend that $350,000 or come back later on. And then when I come back later on and ask for that $350,000 for reconstruction, then I'm only getting 1 road done and not 2, 3, and 4 roads done at a time.
So how many? So your PM is $100,000 to $200,000 per mile, or
per mile?
Per mile.
And
Okay.
typically, I try to do on an average of about a mile to a mile and a half, sometimes 2 miles of road a year. Of projects, not a year. I typically try to do. I'm hoping to get up to 25 miles a year. We have 250 miles, 247 and change of miles of roads in the county. I should be able to maintain all 250 miles of road, which would require me to do, every 10 years, which would require me to do at least 25 miles a year. And the last couple of years, we've been around that 16, 17, 15 range, so I'm not up to where I should be.
So this reduction was a recommendation of the budget committee?
That came out of the budget committee. I can talk, or have Frank talk about that if you'd like.
Sure. It's going to be done.
No hold back, Frank.
Basically, we can't afford it. Unless you want to cut something else.
So it's a matter
My
of...
recommendation would be to probably increase it. A couple $100,000 or maybe $250,000 and come back and take it out of fund balance. We already have money. So why do we want to raise more money to pay roads? Because I don't think you can go from $2,366,000 to $3,200,000. That's what I'm seeing.
So 2018 was 2.3, right? The adopted budget, but the amended budget is 100.
For the people that haven't been on the committee, that weren't here last year in the last budget season, what typically happens is later on, after the year finishes out and we know what our fund balance is, then typically we'll make an appropriation. Is that correct, Frank? When the numbers come in and you know you have the money without raising taxes.
And I think what I'd like to do, as I alluded to earlier, is I have a presentation of how we do the pavement evaluations within the county. I'd like to be able to present to the committee of why I choose the roads I do, and why I need to maintain or be able to maintain at least 25 miles.
So, if you don't mind, I have a question for Frank. Frank, the budget process itself, this is a standard procedure, right? We budget this, we hope this is going to turn out well, and then we backload. We've been doing that. I'm sorry.
I think for the last maybe 3 years. Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen, then would it be, maybe it's more off time, but I was just wondering, instead of hitting this, because it's a big number and easier to hit, would it be better off to take smaller pieces off of different departments that would have less of a cost impact or a future cost impact? Because what Kevin's saying is it's triple the price, double the price per mile if we let things go to full reconstruction. So it's like, where's our money better spent?
I fully understand and I fully agree with it. You want to present that to the other departments? Right. How about taking a look at the sheriff's budget, and then you can come get back to me about the roads. Okay. The sheriff's budget is almost $800,000. I'd love to fix all roads. Take a ride down Warrensburg Road, from Warrensburg to Stone Street.
I'll vouch for that one.
County's finest right there, it is there.
I'll vouch for that one. I was there.
So, believe me, I'd love to fix all roads. I don't know, there's moving parts.
No, I understand. That's just trying. I understand all the moving parts. I'm just trying to understand this other ways, right? And I will defer to you because you've done it for a few years.
I'd love to raise money. My other option is to take that one out. Either set it aside or wait on it.
Okay. All right, I'll be patient. Let's go a little further.
And a fair amount of that money comes through the CHIPS funding from DOT. They provided us 3 different sources of funding. It's CHIPS, the Extreme Winter Recovery, which I'm not sure that we'll have this again this year. They've been hinting that it may not come again this year. Which to say we weren't supposed to get it this year, and we did receive it. And the other part of this is the Pave New York money.
So out of this $4 million in the amended budget, how much was granted?
It's 1.65, I believe, for CHIPS, another $300,000 for the Pave New York, and I think the Extreme Winter Recovery, Frank, you might correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's about 270, or maybe close to 300.
We did that again.
I don't know. They're hinting that we may not receive the Extreme. We'll receive Pave New York. We may not receive the Extreme Winter Recovery. I'll jump down to the next line is county snow. I see that it shows a reduction here. That will not be a reduction. My take on that is, and after discussions with Frank, is we had reduced it based on 3-year averages, but 2014 was an odd year. And we really shouldn't be decreasing the county snow to the town, so that should come back to being basically 0. And I think we were going to amend the resolution that we brought last time so the towns are being paid the same amount as they were being paid before.
Kevin, on that at NISAC, I sat in on the traffic, or the transportation committee, and one of the resolutions was to the state's reimbursement rate has been stagnant, so they said it doesn't reflect current costs, so they're going to raise the state reimbursement rate, or at least that's what they're going to push for. So just in your looking at what is really a true reimbursement rate, take that into mind.
And I just so everybody else is aware, and I'll touch on a little, Matt, I talked to Matt about this, and we've always been using, ever since I've been here, that 3-year average of the 3 previous years as what the towns would receive from the county. But as Matt said, the DOT has their own rate. I think they're, I want to say $9,600 a year right now. If that's remained the same, I mean, I can only imagine if it goes up. I believe the towns are being paid, or will be paid, approximately maybe $82,000 or $83,000 a year from the county. The next item on there that any significant change to would be the services of other governments, and that we just feel that this is all the work that we put into other governments that we don't, it typically doesn't get us a lot or changes that much over the years. The next item I have is the military one. There is an increase in the machinery fund. I'm hoping Frank doesn't take any of this. I had actually asked for, based on our machinery, somewhere in the vicinity of $1.3 million this year. And I don't know that it's reflected in this. I'm not sure what else is in there. There's a lot of other items within that machinery fund. It is increased still, but we had taken away approximately, I think we're down to $800,000 now, Frank, for what we had in the budget committee. So we reduced what I requested, but we're still increased, and it's mainly due to the piece of equipment that I have to replace within the county. I just was at the shop a couple weeks ago with our foreman of the shop, and he was showing me one of our 2016 F550 trucks, which is basically they're the 4-ton trucks with a dump body on the back, and the underbelly of the 2016 truck is already corroded and deteriorated just from the salt. And we wash all our vehicles, but it's still, the weather up here does a number on the vehicles pretty nice.
Well, the combination of that and the salt, it adds up fast.
It does. It does.
They don't mix.
The next item on there, which is an increase, you'll see under DM 5140 with the motor fuel farms. That $170,000 is mainly due to the replacement of the fuel farm at the airport. Over the past couple of years, we replaced Luzerne, we replaced here at the county center. Late last year and early into this year, we replaced the one in Warrensburg. This would replace the fuel farm and do all the associated work to do the replacement of that for this coming year.
So it's $170,000 to replace the fuel farm?
We're not replacing the tanks. This is to upgrade all the dispensers, redo the island work, redo the concrete. If I run into the same scenario, and that's why it's probably at a higher price, if I run into the same scenario that I ran into with Warrensburg, where the manways were all deteriorated, that added a significant amount of money to that project. So that's the budgeted number if those manways are in the same shape. All these were installed approximately the same time frame.
It's just we're under negotiation with a family member, right, for a fuel farm.
What are we talking about?
And I believe that's it. That covers DPW budget. As I said, Monday and Tuesday I'll be discussing facilities and park O&M at their meetings.
Oh, you mean you got more?
I got more.
I thought you were a little light today.
Okay, anything else to come before the committee?
Did we have a quorum and motion to adjourn, or are we?
No, we don't need, I can just adjourn it. We're adjourned. Thanks, Dennis.
Glad to help.